welcome to Bernie Sanders, the next President of the United States.
Very much. I can't believe, I think we were thinking about 500 or 600 people and we doubled that, so thank you so much. Let me thank Ayla and Colleen and my son Levy for their introductions. Let me just talk a little bit about what our campaign is about and what we're trying to accomplish. About 7 months ago, I decided to be a candidate for president. And I decided to do that because I believed in my heart that in this particular moment in American history, where we face so many very serious problems, that establishment politics and establishment economics and establishment media is not going to address the issues that we face. And over the last 7 months, we've come a very long way. We started off with no money, no organization, very little national name recognition. Certainly in Vermont, New Hampshire, I was known, but certainly not around the country. We have come a very long way in 7 months. And one area that we have come a long way in, that I want to tell you about, is that at a time of super PACs, where billionaires are buying elections by contributing unlimited sums of money into the political process, we have received more individual contributions, some 800,000, than any candidate running for president at this point in a campaign. 800,000. What super PACs are about are candidates sitting in a room with millionaires and leaving, with $10 million. Our average contribution is $30. You're looking at a people's campaign. And I think one of the reasons that we have been successful up to this point, and why I think we have an excellent chance with your help to win here in New Hampshire. You all know how important New Hampshire is. We've got to do well and win in Iowa. We win here in New Hampshire. We have got a path toward victory. One of the reasons that I think we are doing well is that we don't have a fancy campaign. I don't have any PowerPoints, no marching bands. What we are doing is just laying the important issues out on the table. And I think people in this country get really tired of a politics in which everything is flip, in which we don't see the kind of serious discussion that the country requires. Probably the best compliment that I've received in this campaign, we've been all over this country, we've talked to hundreds of thousands of people. Some guy came up to me, I think I was in the West Coast, and he said, Bernie, what I like about your campaign is that you treat us like we are intelligent human beings. In other words, what I think, unlike the media, I think you actually can handle real issues and real discussions. And then we can do more than 6-second sound bites. So let me just very simply lay out some of the issues. And the first issue that we have to almost talk about is to determine who decides what the issues are. When you turn on TV tonight, somebody's going to tell you, this is the major issue facing the country. It's the only issue. until tomorrow's issue, where that's the only issue. Who determines what the major issues are? You do. You have got to do that. And don't let CNN or NBC or anybody else tell you what the major issues are, because what goes on in your lives and the lives of your family are by definition the important issues. So let me start off with an issue that frankly does not get a lot of discussion. I am a passionate believer, I don't know where it came from, maybe living in Vermont for 40 or 50 years helped create that, but I'm a passionate believer in grassroots democracy. I love town meetings, I love meetings like this. I love the idea that people can come forward and have disagreements, talk about what's going on in our world. How do we go forward? That's called democracy. Democracy is a pretty radical idea, you know, it's only a couple hundred years old. But let me tell you what's happening to American democracy today. A democracy that people fought and died for. I'm the former chairman of the Veterans Committee. I've worked very hard to try to protect the interests of our veterans in terms of health care and their benefits. But one thing I learned in talking to veterans from World War II on up to Iraq and Afghanistan, people fought and died to protect American democracy. And yet, a year ago, literally a year ago this week, we had a national midterm election. House is up, Senate is up. 63% of the American people didn't vote. 80% of young people didn't vote. 75% of low-income working class people did not vote. What kind of democracy is it when tens of millions of people have given up? They look at Washington and they say, I don't know what you guys are doing. I'm working longer hours for low wages. In some cases, I can't feed my kids. In some cases, I can't afford childcare, can't afford to send my kids to college. We're working harder and harder and going nowhere in a hurry. What are you guys doing in Washington? You're talking about tax breaks for billionaires or another war? You're ignoring climate change. What are you doing? Why should I give you credibility by even participating in an election? So if there's anything as to what this campaign is about, is the reclaiming and rebuilding an American democracy where people, once again, are going to take back their government. Where people are going to stand up and loudly and clearly say, enough is enough. Our government belongs to all of us and not just a handful of billionaire campaign contributors. And when we look at what's going on in America, it is not only the decline of American democracy, and in many ways a corrupt campaign finance system, it is also a rigged economy in which almost all new wealth and income being created is going to the top 1%. Now, you didn't see it probably on TV, they don't report this too much, but a report just came out a week ago, and what it said is the 20 wealthiest people in America own more wealth than the bottom 50% of the American people. 20 people. Top 1/10 of 1%. Not 1%, 1/10 of 1% owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. In the last 2 years, 15 wealthiest people in this country have seen their wealth increase by $170 billion more wealth than is owned by the bottom 40% of the American people. In New Hampshire, in Vermont, all over this country, you got people working incredibly long hours. You got people working 50, 60 hours a week. They're working 2 jobs, they're working 3 jobs. You got wives out here working, husbands out here working, marriages falling apart, people not being able to pay attention to their kids because they're living under such kind of economic turmoil. And yet 58% of all new income created in America today is going to the top 1%. That's an issue the media doesn't like to talk about. My friends in Congress don't like to talk about. But the great challenge that we face is to create an economy that works for all of us and not just the billionaire class. And together, that is what we're going to create. In other words, I am running for president because what many of you may not know is we live in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Wealthiest country in the history of the world. And yet, we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. We are the only major industrialized country that doesn't guarantee health care to all of our people. And the reason I'm running for president of the United States is a great nation is not a nation simply that sees a proliferation of millionaires and billionaires. A great nation is one that makes sure that all of its people have at least a minimal standard of living, and that's what we are going to fight for. This is a hard issue. This issue of having to take on the billionaire class is one that many people are uncomfortable about. A lot of people will get up before you with all sincerity and say, I want to do something for the kids. I want to do something for the elderly. I want to do something for the poor. But I can't take on the billionaire class. I'll get in trouble if I do that. I'm a college professor. I just don't want to talk about it. I'm on media. Well, you know who owns the media. I can't talk about that. But I want all of you to understand that real change is not going to take place in this country until two things happen. Number one is a political revolution. And by that I mean that we need to see millions of people who have given up on the political process get back in and demand that government represents all of us. And the second part of that equation is not only involving and mobilizing many, many millions of people, it is understanding that the billionaire class in this country cannot have it all. That Wall Street and corporate America and the billionaire campaign donors have got to be confronted. Their greed is destroying this country. We have got to have the courage to take them on and say enough is enough. You are not going to have it all.